what if I told you? The most powerful thing you'll ever say to a man isn't loud, clever, or seductive. It doesn't shout, and it doesn't chase. It doesn't manipulate or pretend. In fact, it's barely a whisper, but when it's spoken from alignment, from truth, from stillness, from a deep-rooted awareness of your own worth, 99.9% of men will feel it, and they will remember it long after the words have left your lips. Because it's not the sentence itself, it's who you are when you say it. There is a moment when your energy becomes undeniable, when your calm presence says more than your lips ever could. In that moment, what you say is no longer just communication. It becomes connection. Let us explore why this is so, and how to embody this power without performing, without pretending, and without ever losing yourself. There is a silent truth that governs how others respond to you. Before your words are even fully formed, before the sentence crosses your lips, the energy behind your words has already entered the space. You've already spoken, without uttering a sound. People often believe that communication is about perfect phrasing, charm, or carefully constructed arguments. But the deeper layer of communication is energy, and energy cannot be faked. This is why two people can say the same sentence, yet only one has the power to truly move a heart or shift a room. The one who speaks with alignment, who feels their words before they speak them, has an effect that lingers. The other, no matter how eloquent, is forgotten as quickly as they finish speaking. In the realm of relationships, this distinction is everything. When a woman speaks from a place of grounded self-awareness, when her emotions are not scattered or anxious, but calm and integrated, she becomes unshakably attractive. Her presence quiets the noise around her. She doesn't beg for attention. She commands it, not by force, but by the magnetic pull of authenticity. A man, especially one who is deeply rooted in his own masculine nature, is highly sensitive to the energy behind a woman's words. He may not consciously articulate it, but he will feel it. He will feel whether she is speaking from neediness or wholeness, whether she is asking to be saved or inviting partnership. And this feeling will determine how he responds to her, not just in that moment, but going forward. There is one sentence, a form of expression, that has the ability to touch even the most closed-off heart, but only when it is delivered from this grounded place. It doesn't start with, "Why don't you ever?" or "You never?" Those words trigger defense. They activate the masculine ego, not the masculine heart. But when a woman begins with, "It makes me feel safe when you," or "I love it when you," her words invite instead of demand. They disarm instead of threaten. They are vulnerable, but not weak. They express truth, not accusation. What's happening here, neurologically, is powerful. Human beings are hardwired for emotional contagion. This means the emotional state of one person influences the emotional state of another through a mechanism called mirror neurons. When you speak from anxiety, others feel anxious. When you speak from calmness, others begin to mirror that calm. So when a woman speaks with emotional clarity, her partner, whether friend, lover, or stranger, is more likely to resonate with her message, not resist it. Let's consider a simple story to illustrate. A woman was deeply frustrated. Her husband would come home from work, distracted, barely acknowledging her presence, often diving into emails or television before dinner. She tried saying, "Why don't you pay attention to me?" She tried nagging. She tried silence. Nothing changed. The tension grew. One day, after sitting in stillness for a while, she realized something. She had been reacting from fear and loneliness. But beneath that reaction was a sincere longing to feel close, to feel seen. That evening, as he walked in, she didn't complain. She walked over, touched his shoulder gently, looked him in the eyes, and said, It makes me feel really loved when you hug me as soon as you walk in the door." He paused. The tension in his face softened, and without thinking, he wrapped his arms around her and held her longer than he ever had before. She didn't change her husband with force. She aligned her energy with her truth, and her truth, expressed through calm vulnerability, became irresistible. This is the power of speaking from intention. And intention cannot be manufactured. It must be felt. That's why cultivating inner stillness is not optional, it's essential. Without emotional regulation, your words carry hidden tension. Even when your lips speak love, your nervous system might be transmitting fear, and people respond more to the nervous system than to the spoken message. This is why it's not just what you say that creates connection, but who you are when you say it. It is said that silence is the language of God, all else is poor translation. While that may sound poetic, it reveals something crucial. Inner silence sharpens outer clarity. When you learn to sit in the stillness of your own being, you begin to hear your real voice. Not the voice of your pain, not the voice of your insecurity, but the voice that lives beneath all that noise. The voice of truth. And truth, when spoken gently, becomes deeply magnetic. Some women believe they must impress, entertain, or persuade a man to win his affection. But the truth is, the more you perform, the less present you become. And presence is the most captivating quality you can embody. A woman who is present, who listens with her whole being, who speaks without rushing, who looks into your eyes without fear, will always be unforgettable. Presence speaks louder than performance. This leads us to something easily overlooked but quietly powerful, the energy of still femininity. This is not submission or passivity. It is inner spaciousness. It is the ability to remain emotionally grounded in the presence of someone else's intensity or indifference. It is a kind of soft power that never screams but is always heard. This presence cannot be faked with a relaxed tone or a calm facial expression. It must be cultivated within. To cultivate it, begin with the breath. The breath is a bridge between the mind and the body. When you feel triggered, disappointed, or reactive, pause, breathe deeply. Feel the air enter and exit your body. Return to the present moment. From here, clarity emerges. You can ask yourself, what am I really feeling? And what do I actually want to express? Most emotional chaos stems from a refusal to pause, but in that pause lies power. Another woman in a dating relationship was often overwhelmed by anxiety when her partner didn't text back right away. Her instinct was to send another message seeking validation. But over time, she realized this never worked. The more she chased, the more distant he became. So she tried something new. She began practicing silence, not the kind that punishes, but the kind that centers. She would take a walk, journal, meditate. She stopped needing to say something every time she felt something. Slowly, her presence shifted. She became less reactive, more peaceful, and something unexpected happened. He started reaching out more often, noticing her energy shift, feeling safer to open up. This woman didn't say anything magical. She simply stopped leaking energy. And when she did speak, her words had weight. They were no longer born out of panic. They were rooted in calm clarity. It is often said that what you chase runs away, but what you welcome stays. This is not just spiritual poetry. It is neuroscience. The masculine responds not to force, but to invitation. Not to pressure, but to peace. When a woman embodies peace, her words become nourishment instead of noise. Imagine two scenarios. In one, a woman says, "You never make time for me. I don't feel like I matter." The words may be honest, but they are clouded with resentment. They push the listener away, triggering guilt or defensiveness. In the second, she says, "I feel deeply connected to you when we spend quiet time together." I miss that. The words are still honest, but now they invite, not accuse. They create a path forward, not a wall. It's not about suppressing your truth. It's about expressing it in a way that creates understanding rather than division. Even the ancient masters knew this. In classical Eastern teachings, the principle of Wu Wei, effortless action, reminds us that the most effective movements often arise from non-resistance, not from forceful pushing, but from flowing with awareness. The same applies to speech. When your words flow from inner ease, they carry the force of nature behind them. So how do you know when your words are aligned? Simple. You feel no tension after speaking them. You don't feel the need to control the outcome. You speak and then let go, because your identity is not attached to being right or being received in a certain way. You are not chasing a reaction. You are revealing a truth. This is what makes you irresistible. It is not about seduction. It is not about cleverness. It is about congruence. When your thoughts, your emotions, and your words all point in the same direction. People feel this. Men feel this. They might not articulate it, but they are drawn to it instinctively because it is rare. And in a world that moves too fast, a woman who speaks slowly, clearly, and from her center becomes a sanctuary. One final story. An older woman, widowed after a long and beautiful marriage, was asked how her relationship lasted so many years with such depth. She smiled and said, "I never tried to change him with my words. I only ever tried to speak what was true for me, with kindness, and only after I knew it was really mine to say." Thus she paused. "And when I spoke from that place, he always listened." Sometimes the most irresistible thing you can say is something that doesn't seek to change the other, but simply reveals yourself without fear. Because when you are unafraid to be seen, you invite others to see you more clearly. And that changes everything. In the stillness of honest connection, there is a realization. Most people do not want to be told what to do. They want to be seen, heard, and invited. A relationship becomes strained when communication is built on instruction rather than connection. And yet, how often do we fall into the pattern of demands? The sentence structure that dominates many conversations sounds like this: "You need to," or "You should." While these expressions may be born from urgency or even care, they often bypass the deeper need for connection and activate resistance. It is a subtle but powerful shift to move from control to invitation, from "you should" to "it makes me feel." The difference is not only emotional, it is neurological. The human brain is naturally wired to protect itself from threat. When someone hears a directive that challenges their autonomy, the brain responds with defensiveness. But when you use emotionally open language that begins with your own vulnerability, it activates the parts of the brain responsible for empathy, compassion, and bonding. So when a woman says, "It makes me feel connected when you take a moment to really listen," instead of "You never listen to me," the impact is transformational. The latter may speak a kind of truth, but the former speaks a higher truth, one that preserves dignity, both hers and his. In that one simple shift, the conversation moves from being adversarial to relational. It opens rather than closes. This subtlety is not weakness. It is wisdom. There's a story of a young woman who was dating a man she truly cared for. He was kind, loyal, and responsible, but emotionally distant. She often felt like she was chasing his attention, trying to get him to be more emotionally available. Eventually, this pressure led to frequent arguments. She would say things like, "You never open up," or "Why are you always so cold?" He would either shut down further or leave the room. After some inner reflection, she realized she was trying to force connection rather than have invited it. She began to change the way she spoke. Instead of accusing, she began to reveal. One night, she said softly, "When you open up and share your day with me, I feel safe with you. I feel close to you." There was no demand in her voice, no tone of judgment, just sincerity. He looked at her, surprised, and said, "No one's ever said that to me before." From that moment on, something shifted. He began to share more, not because he was told to, but because he was invited into a space of emotional safety. She had created a doorway, not a wall. Emotional invitations are more powerful than instructions. This kind of communication requires discipline. It demands that you take a breath before speaking, that you become aware of your own inner world before projecting it onto someone else. But this pause is where wisdom lies. In relationships, it is tempting to speak from reaction, but reaction is not communication. It is projection. True communication begins when we speak from awareness, not from our wound. When a woman learns to express her needs not as accusations, but as vulnerable truths, she stops being too much in a man's mind and starts being unforgettable. Because here is the paradox: the masculine wants to be needed, but not demanded. He wants to be respected, not instructed. He responds to clarity, not chaos. And a woman who knows how to ask without attacking becomes deeply respected. A calm, clear request, rooted in emotional truth, is not manipulation. It is invitation, and it draws the masculine forward, naturally. But even before the words are spoken, something else determines whether they will be heard or ignored. Presence. Presence is not just being physically there. It is an energetic posture. It is the alignment of body, mind, and emotion. When you are fully present, you are not trying to escape the moment, nor are you trying to control it. You are simply in it completely. And in that presence, you become powerful. Not by force, but by being deeply rooted in yourself. There is a kind of quiet strength in a woman who is not performing. She doesn't speak to prove her worth. She doesn't try to impress. She simply is. And her words reflect this inner stability. There's a young mother who illustrates this beautifully. She had 3 children, a demanding job, and a marriage that was slowly unraveling under the weight of unspoken tensions. Her husband would come home, scroll through his phone, and barely notice her or the children. She used to complain constantly, trying to wake him up with criticism. It never worked. One day, after a long conversation with a mentor, she decided to change not her words, but her presence. She began practicing 5 minutes of silence every morning. No phone, no noise, just her breath. She did this for weeks, and slowly, something inside her began to shift. She felt calmer, less reactive, more herself. Then, one evening, she sat beside her husband on the couch, touched his hand gently, and said, "I miss you. I miss the way we used to sit and talk." Her tone was soft. Her eyes were steady. There was no blame in her body. He looked up from his phone, startled. And for the first time in months, he put it down and said, "I miss that too." It wasn't her words that changed him. It was her energy. Her presence had become undeniable. The body is always communicating, even before the mouth speaks. When a person is anxious, their breath is shallow, their shoulders are tense, and their tone is tight. When they are present, everything softens. The voice becomes clearer, the eyes become gentler, the message becomes magnetic. There's a principle from the mind-body connection called a coherence. When your heart rate, breathing, and brain waves are synchronized, you enter a state of coherence, and people around you feel it. They may not know what it is, but they feel more at ease in your presence. In relationships, this coherence makes your communication powerful. You're no longer scattered. You're centered. This is why inner alignment is not just a personal goal. It is a relational gift. When you are aligned, you stop sending mixed signals. You stop saying one thing but feeling another. Your yes becomes yes, your no becomes no, and your boundaries become clear, not rigid, not aggressive, but steady. A woman once said to her partner, "I'm okay," when she clearly wasn't. Her tone was sharp, her face tight, and her body closed. He could feel the contradiction, but didn't know how to respond. The result: distance. Later, after journaling and some quiet time alone, she approached him again. This time she said, "Earlier I said I was okay, but I wasn't. I felt unseen, and that hurt. I want us to be able to talk about things when they happen." Her tone was calm. Her body was relaxed. The contradiction was gone. And this time he heard her. Presence brings clarity, and clarity opens the door to connection. There is a reason why men often retreat from emotionally intense situations. It's not because they don't care. It's because their nervous systems are not always equipped to handle ungrounded emotion. When a woman speaks from a dysregulated state, panic, rage, deep anxiety, it often overwhelms him. But when she speaks from regulated emotion, even if she is sad or hurt, her message becomes clear, not chaotic. Men are not resistant to emotion. They are resistant to emotional chaos. This is where the breath becomes your ally. Before speaking, take a breath. Let it be slow. Let it travel all the way down into your belly. Notice how your body feels. Ask yourself, is this the right time to speak? And am I speaking from clarity or just urgency? Urgency is not the same as importance. Not everything that feels urgent is worth saying immediately. Sometimes the greatest wisdom is knowing when to speak. Silence, when held with presence, can be more powerful than rushed words. There is an old teaching. The wise speak because they have something to say. The foolish speak because they have to say something. The more you become aligned with your own presence, the less you speak from compulsion. You begin to notice how some words bring you closer and others push you apart. You become more aware of your tone, your timing, and your intention. And from this place, your words begin to carry weight. You may not say much, but when you do, people listen. A woman who embodies presence and speaks with emotional clarity is not only respected, she is remembered. Her words become medicine, not manipulation. Her energy becomes peace, not pressure. This does not mean you suppress your truth. It means you wait until your truth is clear. A woman once said to her therapist, "I feel like I'm always too much." The therapist replied, "It's not that you're too much. It's that your truth hasn't had time to rest before it speaks. Rested truth is powerful. Agitated truth is chaotic. So the next time you feel the urge to speak, pause. Ask yourself, is this coming from my grounded self or from my reactive self? And if it's not yet clear, wait. Let your truth rest. Because when it rises from rest, it will be heard, not just by the ears, but by the heart. There is a silent, often unnoticed force behind every word we speak. It is the invisible alignment between what we think, what we feel, and what we say. When this alignment is strong, our words carry clarity, peace, and integrity. But when our inner world is fragmented, when we think one thing, feel another, and say something else entirely, our words lose their power. They become noise, not guidance. Confusion, not connection. To speak from alignment means that the body, the heart, and the mind are not in contradiction. This coherence is what gives presence its depth and communication its resonance. It is not about having the perfect sentence or rehearsed expression. It is about being in tune with your own inner truth and having the courage to reveal it without resistance. In relationships, people often underestimate how much misalignment damages trust. A woman may say, "I'm fine," when she's deeply hurt. A man may nod in agreement, while internally bracing himself with resentment. We speak to each other, but we do not speak from ourselves. And this disconnect leads to an erosion of emotional safety. Over time, even small misalignments build walls. Now consider the opposite. A woman who is emotionally clear speaks in a way that requires no translation. She may say something as simple as, "I don't feel settled about this decision," or "I need some space to reconnect with myself." And in those few words, the listener can feel her inner world matching her outer expression. There's no hidden agenda, no performance, no double meaning. It's clean, it's grounded. Alignment makes your words trustworthy. Without it, no matter how soft your tone is or how carefully you phrase your request, the energy behind your words will betray your intentions. A person may nod, may comply, may even smile, but deep down they will feel resistance, because people are not fooled by words. They feel your state before they hear your sentence. This is especially true in romantic relationships. The heart is sensitive. It can detect even slight shifts in authenticity. When a woman speaks from misalignment, when her words are trying to please, manipulate, or mask, her partner might not know what feels off, but he will feel something is off. And the result is withdrawal, confusion, or conflict. A woman once described how every time she tried to talk to her partner about their future, he would become avoidant. He would change the subject, become sarcastic, or emotionally disappear. She felt rejected. Her instinct was to push harder, to talk more, to corner him with carefully structured arguments. But nothing worked. Eventually, in a moment of painful honesty, she realized her words were not coming from a place of clarity. They were coming from fear. Fear of abandonment. Fear of being left behind. And that fear, though hidden behind her logic, was speaking out through her. Her partner was not responding to the content of her words. He was responding to the energy behind them. So she took a break, not from the relationship, but from the performance. She spent time journaling, reflecting, reconnecting to her own values and needs. And when she spoke to him again, her voice was different, not desperate, not aggressive, but anchored. She said, "I've realized I've been speaking to you from fear. That's not fair to either of us. What I truly want is to build something real, and I want to know if you feel the same, not because I'm pushing, but because I'm ready." This time, he didn't run. He didn't change the subject. He leaned in. When you speak from alignment, your presence carries weight. Your message is no longer just a request. It is a reflection of your inner strength. But alignment is not always easy to access, especially when emotions are high. That's why it must be cultivated daily, not just in moments of conflict. It is a practice, not a performance. One of the simplest ways to return to alignment is to begin with the body. The body is always honest. When something feels wrong, it shows up as tightness in the chest, tension in the neck, a sinking in the gut. These signals are not to be ignored. They are invitations to pause, to breathe, to listen. When a woman ignores these signals and speaks anyway, her words carry that internal dissonance. But when she pauses to acknowledge what her body is telling her, she becomes grounded. She slows down. And in that space, clarity returns. There's a phrase often used in contemplative traditions: go slow to go deep. The same applies to emotional truth. Rushing to speak often leads to shallow communication. Slowing down, waiting until your emotions have settled and your thoughts have aligned, allows your message to touch the heart. This depth cannot be faked. It must be lived. A woman once shared a story about confronting her partner after finding messages from another woman on his phone. Her first instinct was to explode, to accuse, to shout. But instead, she walked away, not out of avoidance, but because she knew her first reaction would not serve her. She went into nature, sat beneath a tree, and breathed. She allowed the storm inside her to pass, not to disappear, but to quiet. Then, later that evening, she spoke, not from rage, but from alignment, she said. When I saw those messages, something in me broke. Not because I didn't expect pain, but because I didn't expect dishonesty. I need honesty more than I need perfection. And I need to know if you're still standing beside me or already gone. There was no yelling, no blame, just truth. And in that truth, something sacred emerged, a moment of real connection. Whether they stayed together or not, that moment revealed her strength. She didn't collapse. She didn't explode. She stood, grounded, clear, aligned. This kind of alignment comes from emotional maturity. And emotional maturity is not about suppressing feelings. It's about knowing which feelings are yours to carry, which are momentary, and which are guiding you to deeper truth. It's about being able to say, I feel angry, without becoming the anger. To say, I feel abandoned, without becoming the abandoned one. To witness your emotional waves without letting them throw you off center. From this center, your voice becomes sacred. You no longer say things to win approval. You speak because your soul has something to express. You don't chase validation. You don't manipulate outcomes. You simply express what is real. And the power of this kind of speech cannot be overstated. Because when a man hears a woman speak from alignment, he feels her integrity. He knows she can be trusted, not because she always agrees with him, but because she agrees with herself. She is not divided. She is not pretending. And in a world full of masks, that kind of realness is rare. There is a powerful teaching from the old traditions that says, when the heart and the tongue are one, the listener is blessed. This unity between heart and speech is the essence of aligned communication. And it is cultivated not through effort, but through surrender, a surrender to truth, a surrender to authenticity, a surrender to the present moment. This doesn't mean you will always feel calm before speaking, but it does mean you take the time to find the still point within the storm. Even in conflict, even in heartbreak, there is always a deeper voice, a voice beneath the noise that speaks not from panic, but from presence. Your task is to listen to that voice, to wait for it, to trust it. And when it comes, speak from it, even if your voice trembles, even if your hands shake, even if you're not sure how it will be received. Because that voice, the one that speaks from alignment, is your truest power. And when you use it, not to impress, but to express, something extraordinary happens. People listen, not just with their ears, but with their hearts. Because alignment is not just attractive, it's healing. It brings clarity to confusion, peace to conflict, and truth to silence. It invites others to meet you in that same alignment. It invites honesty. It invites respect. It invites love. And all of it begins within. There are moments in every relationship where a simple sentence changes everything. Not because of the words themselves, but because of the place they came from. Not from fear, not from manipulation, but from truth. There is a kind of language that does not seek to win, to dominate, or to defend. It seeks only to connect, and it does so not with force, but with gentle courage. Vulnerability, when expressed with calm confidence, is one of the most powerful relational tools a person can possess. Yet most avoid it. Most protect themselves with layers of logic, performance, sarcasm, or silence. They wear emotional armor and wonder why they feel alone, even in close relationships. To speak a sentence like, "It makes me feel deeply connected when you," seems simple on the surface. But this is not just a phrase. It is a doorway. It is a quiet surrender into truth that holds dignity without demanding compliance. It is an offering, not a negotiation. And its power lies in how rare it is. People have learned to withhold this kind of expression because they fear being seen and not being valued. They have learned to harden in order to protect what is soft. But what many do not realize is that when spoken from strength, Vulnerability is not weakness, it is magnetism. A man is not drawn to a woman because she is flawless or always composed. He is drawn to the moments where she reveals herself without losing herself. When she shows her heart, but not in desperation. When she speaks her longing, but not to be saved. That balance of openness and strength is what calls forth the deepest parts of him. Not his ego, but his devotion. Not his fear, but his presence. There is a woman who once shared a story of a turning point in her relationship. She and her partner had grown distant. The connection was thinning, but no one was saying what needed to be said. One night, as he sat at the kitchen table scrolling through his phone, she walked over, sat beside him, and placed her hand on his. She didn't ask him why he had grown cold. She didn't complain. Instead, she said quietly, "When you look me in the eyes while we talk, I feel seen by you. I feel close to you, and I've missed that." There was no demand in her voice, no tone of accusation, just truth, gentle, centered, honest. He didn't speak for a moment. Then he put down his phone and said, "I didn't realize how far I had drifted." They talked for hours that night. Not because she forced it, but because she opened the door. This is the power of calm vulnerability. It does not push, it pulls. Not with manipulation, but with presence. In neuroscience, this phenomenon is supported by studies on emotional co-regulation. When one person in a conversation is emotionally regulated, calm, clear, and grounded, the other person's nervous system begins to mirror that state. This is called interpersonal resonance. When a woman speaks from calm vulnerability, she naturally invites the man into a space of safety. His defense is lower. His listening deepens. His impulse to protect and connect is awakened. This is very different from emotional flooding. When a person is overwhelmed and speaks from an unregulated place, their partner's brain reads the interaction as threat. Even if the words are loving, the energy is chaotic. But when the same words come from stillness, they are received, not rejected. So the sentence, "It makes me feel deeply connected when you," becomes irresistible not because it is clever or poetic, but because it is real, and realness has a frequency. But realness without regulation can become rawness. And rawness without grounding often becomes blame. This is why emotional discipline is essential. Not suppression, but refinement. Learning to feel fully without letting those feelings dominate our speech. Letting the emotion move through the body before shaping it into words. Letting silence stretch until sincerity can rise. One woman learned this the hard way. She was in love with a man who had a habit of withdrawing emotionally. When she felt abandoned, her instinct was to chase through long texts, emotional monologues, and arguments. But none of it worked. The more she tried to make him see her pain, the more he pulled away. Then she began to practice something different. Whenever she felt overwhelmed, she would pause, breathe, place her hand on her chest, and say silently, "I feel this, but I am not this." She would write in her journal, cry in her room, walk by the ocean. But she would wait until her storm passed before speaking. And when she finally did, she would say things like, "When you turn toward me and ask how I'm feeling, I feel deeply loved. I feel close to you. That's what I long for." She no longer chased. She invited. And over time, he began to respond, not out of guilt, but out of his own desire. Because when a man feels that his woman's vulnerability is not a trap but a truth, he is drawn to it. He does not feel blamed or cornered. He feels honored. He feels safe. He feels like he can win with her, not by pretending to be perfect, but by showing up honestly. Many women confuse vulnerability with fragility, but vulnerability, when practiced with spiritual discipline, becomes a form of leadership. It leads the relationship into authenticity. It clears the space. It silences the games.